السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, inshallah ta'ala, we were supposed to do the seerah today instead of Monday, but I thought so that there is no confusion, we'll continue with the schedule as it was, where we have the fiqh of worship today. So we just missed the dars of the seerah this week, basically. So we have two fiqh of worship this week. So we continue, inshallah ta'ala, with the fiqh of worship. And last time we talked about the al-masih ala al-khuffayn, wiping over the khuf, and this is part of the subject in the wudu. And after that, inshallah ta'ala, let me see here what comes next as far as the topics are concerned. The Nawaqid of al-Wudu. The Nawaqid of the Wudu. What breaks the Wudu. And what breaks the Wudu is, the knowledge of it is as important as knowing how to make Wudu. And this is the case as it's mentioned before, even in Aqidah. To know the Nawaqid, to know what breaks something, to know what negates something is as important as knowing that thing. In Tawheed, in La ilaha illallah, to know what La ilaha illallah means and what it's consistent of, and the conditions of it, and so on, is important. Of course, it's the foundation of the deen, and also it's important to know what negates La ilaha illallah, what makes a person who leaves the fold of Islam. And the same thing with matters of wudu, with matters of salah. So Nawaqid al-Wudu, 6 of them. Inshallah, we remember 6 of them, and mentioned them briefly yesterday. So repeating that again, inshallah ta'ala, to make sure also that we have that written in our notes. As we said, the first thing is what comes out from as-sabilayn, what comes out from the front and the back when a person relieves oneself, urinating or defecating or anything, whether it's pure or impure, as we said. Even if a person had the medicine that came out, the same time that it was inserted, that breaks the wudu. The fact that something came out, that breaks the wudu. The second thing is losing one's conscious with the sleep, or losing consciousness by just fainting, or intoxicated, or being insane, and things like this. Of course, losing one's conscious, a person would make up the salah after he gains conscious again. And that's with sleep. If a person overslept the salah, right, once he wakes up, he has to make up that salah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of his favors upon us is to sleep. And that's one of the miraculous things in the human beings that human beings need to reflect upon. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in the Quran, Allah yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mawtiha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that takes the souls when it's the moment of death. Allah yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha. And the one that doesn't die in its sleep. So the souls are taken. And then one is kept with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is death, and one is returned back to the person. So this is a great favor when a person wakes up from sleep. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us in matters of ibadah with regards to waking up for salah. The subject, and I know that this is fiqh, where we're supposed to talk about the rulings of fiqh, but I want you to pay attention to this one, because we need to reflect upon things. Waking up is part of what human beings, they do. They wake up. Some people, they just wake up whatever they wake up, right? And there's always something that would make us wake up for. People wake up for their job, for the school, to meet someone, to do something, to go for a trip, right? To go have fun. to watch something that they like, whatever reasons there is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from the believers as a way to test them also with their ubudiyyah to Allah, that you would wake up for the salah. So waking up for salah, Salatul Fajr for example, and it's meant to be at a time where many people are asleep. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to wake up for Salatul Fajr. This is a mandatory thing. And it's the most virtuous salah, Salatul Fajr. And we can talk about it in details, but the point here is that this is not a matter of choice for the believers. They have to wake up. And also, as the case with matters of rulings, you would have something as an obligation and some other things as a recommended act that elevates the person in higher levels of al-iman and virtue. And that is waking up for the salah at night, qiyamul layl, and the virtue of that and so on. So waking up for the salah. If a person accidentally overslept, if he overslept an obligatory salah till the time of it ends, then he still has to make the salah once he remembers. That means once he wake up. So a person woke up for Fajr, even if there are minutes before sunrise, he should pray at that time, even though it's a forbidden time, but he had missed the obligatory salah. So to pray at any time once he wakes up. Person wakes up after sunrise, he still has to pray right away after he wakes up. He makes wudu and he prays. And in that case, if he already missed it, he can still pray the sunnah prayer first and then the fard. But if he woke up and there's only a few minutes left to sunrise and there's not enough time to pray the sunnah and the fard, then in that case to pray the fard the first, and then after sunrise you can make up the sunnah prayer. And the same thing even with waking up or missing qiyamul layl, someone that is used to pray, and that we should, again, not as an obligation, but we should have number of rak'at that we pray every day. And the Prophet ﷺ used to pray 11 rak'at at night, whether it's in Ramadan or in other than Ramadan. So the entire year, like how we pray Salatul Taraweeh in Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ would pray 11 rak'at. So if he overslept in the night that he didn't pray the night prayer, the 11 rak'ah, he would make them up at the time of duha in the morning. He would pray them then 12 rak'ah. He would add a rak'ah because the witr is not to be prayed as witr, as odd number. If you missed it, you add a rak'ah to it to make it even. So that means it becomes 12 rak'ah. So the point here is zawal al-aql. We're talking about what negates the wudu. So if a person slept, whenever he wakes up, he has to make wudu. And is it when a person sitting on a chair or sleeping on his bed or any type of sleeping? The answer is yes, if he really slept. But if just a person is being sleepy, he can hear people around him, he didn't fall asleep yet, that does not break the wudu. If a person sitting. So the subject of if you're sitting, then the wudu is not broken. If you're laying down, the wudu is broken. What is this? And it's a mas'ala that has many statements of the people of knowledge because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. But to make it brief is, if you fall asleep, that means you slept really. It doesn't matter whether you slept sitting or you slept laying down. It only matters with regards to sitting or laying down if you're not deep sleep. Right, so if a person is not deep sleep and he sits down while sitting, it doesn't break the wudu, and he can just make salah without renewing the salah. And how to figure that out? If you're sitting and someone is talking next to you, you can hear that person, so you're not really yet in that state of sleep. There's another issue with negating the wudu, with breaking the wudu, with sleeping or with losing conscious. If a person goes to a coma, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all and give us afiyah and strength, and he wakes up, of course it breaks the wudu. And as it will come in matters of the salah, that does that person has to make up the salah or not? The answer is yes. And yes, if it's only a day or two, or something like this, or 3 days, a few numbers of days. But if a person becomes in a coma for many days, months, or things like this, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him cure, he doesn't have to make up all of the missed salah, because he, as the ulama they say, falls into like an analogy, like in the category of someone that is insane, someone lost his mind. So you get the same ruling. But if it's only for a short period of time, he falls into the category of someone that was asleep. So we kind of change the subject here, but just so many things that comes up as a result of that. So the second thing of breaking the wudu is zawal al-aql, losing one's aql, like from sleeping, fainting, intoxications, whether it's halal, whether it's haram. The third one is to touch one's private part without a ha'il, meaning with one's skin, and that breaks the wudu, whether it's intentionally or if it's unintentional. It doesn't break the wudu. If it's unintentional, it doesn't break the wudu. Only the one that is intentional, and oneself or others, like changing a baby's diaper or whatever, to be away from the differences of opinion, than to make the wudu. Wallahu a'lam. The fourth naqid, or the fourth thing that breaks the wudu, is everything that necessitates a ghusl, or taking a shower, like al-janaba after relations, or al-hayd wa nufas, the period for women, and the afterbirth bleeding. All of that breaks the wudu, because it's obviously makes it mandatory for the person, once they're done with that state, that they have to take a shower. So that means the major tahara is broken. That means the minor one, already broken too. The fifth naqid, or the fifth thing that breaks the wudu, is al-ridda wal-'iyadu billah, if a person renegated from the deen of al-Islam, becomes a kafir. When he returns back to the fold of al-Islam, he has to make wudu again. Now, I mentioned that because it's a true case here. And number 6 is to eat camel meat. If a person eats camel meat, right, then it breaks the wudu. And why is that? Because there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith of Jabir ibn Samurah radiallahu anhu, that a man came and he asked the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith in Sahih Muslim, a man came and asked the Prophet ﷺ, أتوضأ من لحوم الغنم? Should I make wudu after eating goat meat and sheep and cows and so on? He said, إن شئت فتوضأ وإن شئت فلا توضأ. Prophet ﷺ said, if you wish, make wudu. If you don't make wudu. So it's not something that you have to do. قال أتوضأ من لحوم الإبل. Then he asked the Prophet ﷺ, should I make wudu from the camel meat? If you eat the camel meat? He said, نعم. فتوضأ من لحوم الإبل. He said, yes. Make wudu from the meat of the camel. So this is a clear statement from the Prophet ﷺ, that if you eat the camel meat, then you make wudu. The wisdom behind that, it's something else. They talked about it, but we're talking about the rulings here. So the ruling here is to make wudu from the meat of the camel. So these are 6 things that negates the wudu. What if someone, and that's an important mas'ala, an important point here that we need to remember, what if someone is in doubt with regards to his wudu? Did he break his wudu, or he didn't break his wudu? The principle at all times with regards to a shak or doubt is that you always base your actions based on al-yaqeen, or certainty. That means you don't build an action based on doubt. You only build your actions based on yaqeen, or certainty. What that means? It means someone is in doubt whether he broke his wudu or not. That's doubt. What's the yaqeen? What's the certainty? That he was in tahara, he was pure, he was in state of wudu, but he is in doubt whether he broke it or not. So the ruling here is what? What's the yaqeen? The yaqeen that he was in state of wudu and state of purity. So that doubt has no consideration to it whatsoever. But what if a person is in doubt whether he made wudu or not? And that's the difference here between this and the previous case. So the first one, a person is in doubt whether he broke his wudu or not. The certainty is that he is certain that he made wudu, but he is in doubt whether he broke it or not. That person, he continue in state of wudu and he can make salah, there is no harm if he's in doubt. But the other case, if he is in doubt whether he made wudu or not, so the asl, the foundation of the tahara or the purification, he is in doubt about. In that case, what certainty? He is certain that he was not in wudu, and then he's not sure if he made wudu or not, right? So in that case, he has to make wudu. Why? Because al-yaqeen or certainty is that he was not in state of tahara, and he is in doubt whether he made the wudu or not. So even if he is in the middle of the salah, but we have to be careful with the subject of a doubt or a shak. If a person finds himself falling into this doubt many times, like every day, twice a day, for example, or something like this, then he has to stop it immediately and never pay attention to the doubt. Why? Because this is waswas of shaitan, to protect himself from falling into this compulsion that can lead him to some physical changes in his body and to get sick and to spend the entire day trying to make wudu and repeat the wudu and things like this. So it's, the shak or the doubt in these matters happens once in a while. Once it becomes kind of a increasing manner or becomes the norm to the person, he has to stop that immediately and not to build an action based on the normal subject of a shak or doubt. So this is something important. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith reported by Imam Muslim, that he said, إذا وجد أحدكم في بطنه شيئا فأشكل عليه أخرج منه شيء أم لا فلا يخرجن من المسجد حتى يسمع صوتا أو يجد ريحا. Which means if one of you finds something, feels something in his stomach, فأشكل عليه, so he's in doubt, meaning he's in doubt whether he passed wind or not, whether he broke his wudu or not, whether this particular example or anything else. So the person is in doubt while he is in salah, whether he broke his wudu or not. أخرج منه شيء أم لا, something came out actually or not. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, فلا يخرجن من المسجد, he should not leave the masjid unless he hears a sound or he finds a smell. لا يخرجن من المسجد, because the wudu used to be outside the masjid. So it means do not go make wudu, do not break your salah to make wudu unless you hear a sound or you find a smell. These two things takes the person from the state of doubt or the state of not knowing whether something came out or not to the state of certainty that, something came out, because there's another thing to support that reason why something came out. So that means what? That means if it's only shak, if it's only doubt, a person is not sure that something come out or not. Sometimes a person feels something in his stomach, as the Prophet ﷺ said. Then the ruling here, by the order of the Prophet ﷺ, don't say out of piety, I'll just get out of the salah. Salah is the most important thing. I don't want to, put it in such a, jeopardize my salah. You should just, what's wrong with that? It's just, water is available, everything is easy. No, you're disobeying the order of the Prophet ﷺ. If you are in salah, do not leave the salah unless you are certain. And Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah, when he explained this hadith, to make it easy for us, what is this level of certainty? Is if you can say, of course you don't say that in the salah, but it's the state where you can swear by Allah that you broke your wudu. If you cannot swear by Allah that you broke your wudu, then do not leave the salah. If you're not in salah, it's okay. You can make wudu again, unless it becomes a repeated thing to you, then you have to stop it right away. Stop acting based on the doubt if it's something that is recurring to you many times. We'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala, because of the time of the next class. And next time, inshallah ta'ala, remind me and give you this, if to remind me, inshallah, next time, is that we'll talk about what's recommended for a person to make wudu, and other things that in the subject of breaking the wudu, inshallah. So if you have any questions, go ahead, inshallah. Okay, can you clarify the type of socks acceptable for wiping? What are thick cotton socks okay? The thickness that is not see-through. Now, with regards to the type of socks and the thickness of the socks, these are two different things. The types of socks has differences of opinions among the ulama, meaning some said it only has to be khuf made of leather, and it's not permissible to wipe over the cloth socks. But the other opinion is that cloth socks is valid to wipe over. This is the madhab of Imam Ahmad and others, and that's based on a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that is narrated from 9 of the companions of the Allah anhum, that the Prophet ﷺ used to wipe over al-khufayni wal-jawrabayn. That the Prophet ﷺ used to wipe over the khuffayn, the leather socks also, and the jawrabayn. The word jawrabayn is mentioned, which is basically was made of cloth. And also they used to call it at-tasakhin from heat. So they would use it for to warm themselves. So this is something to be wiped over if it covers the entire foot to the ankles. The ankles are completely covered, not the short socks. So whether it's thick or not thick, it doesn't matter. There's no conditions mentioned in the Sharia with regards to the thickness. But if something is extremely light, extremely thin, that when you touch your foot as if you're not wearing anything, this is definitely something not to wipe over. You know, if it's a very, very thin, like some of the things for women they wear. So this is something that you don't wipe over. But also, one of the reason, or you might hear that you cannot wipe over the cloth socks, because one of the conditions, or that they said, is that it has to be part of the norm that people use them for walking, which is true. And nobody ever said that you have to walk outside with it. What's the difference between walking with it inside of the house or outside the house? If you're wearing a sock that you can walk, people don't usually walk outside of their homes with the socks, but if they walk, it's not going to fall down or something like this. But if it's very loose that it falls down, then it's not something to wipe over. So this is with regards to the types of socks. And again, with the thickness, it has to be just a normal socks that covers. If it's transparent, you can see through the entire foot, and you can feel the skin when you're wiping over it very clearly, then that's not something to wipe over. Wallahu a'lam. There's a question. I have wudu and also wearing valid socks. Then I used toilet. As we said, wiping over the socks is when you break your wudu, you can wipe over them. You don't have to take your socks off. The only case is that if you have to take a shower, then you have to take your socks off. But with the condition that you put your socks on when you had full wudu. In the state of full wudu, that means you washed your foot, and then after that you put your socks on in that state. You can wipe over the socks for 24 hours if you're not a traveler. And that means every time you break your wudu, you can wipe over them. You don't have to wash your foot. Is it okay to fall asleep while listening to Quran? For example, if you put Surah Al-Baqarah on before you fall asleep, there's no harm, inshallah. It's permissible. And that brings the subject of, is it permissible to have the Quran on in the house when you're not really paying attention to it? Of course, the best state is that the person listens to the Quran and he's focused on it and so on. But if not, it's still okay to have this. Someone else might listen to it. You might listen to a verse here and there. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, when he talked about the ayah, إِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. If the Quran is recited, then listen to it, and أَنصِتُوا, be silent, لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ, so that you would receive the mercy of Allah. He said this in the salah. This is with regards to the Quran recited in the salah. You should listen to it and not to recite, or so. You should just listen to the Quran and to be silent. But the Quran that is being recited outside of the salah is not applied in this ayah, but it's also a good thing and a virtuous thing is to focus on the Quran. But in that case, there's no harm, even if you slept and the Quran is on the entire night till you wake up, or continuously for 24 hours the Quran is on. This is a good thing, inshallah. There's no harm. Allah. Okay, what? Now, this is the same question. Now, no, I have wudu and also wearing valid socks, then I use toilet. In this case, can I wipe over the socks for what? Yes. Anything that breaks the wudu, you can wipe over the socks. But if you have to take a shower, then of course you have to take the socks off and you have to wash your foot, of course. What if whenever you make wudu, you pass gas, what you do? If a person has a condition, whether it's salas al-bawl or salas al-rih, the continuous hadath, that means a person is always breaks the wudu, whether it's with passing gas or with urine that he has no control in whatsoever. In that case, the ruling for that person, as the same thing with women if she has blood that is not in the time of her period and so on, the same ruling applies, which is that you make wudu after the time of the salah enters. So it is not valid for such a person to make Salatul Asr with the wudu of Salatul Dhuhr, because he passes gas so much and he has a condition, that's a physical condition. So in that case, he has to make wudu for every salah, fard, that the time of it, once it enters, then he makes wudu. And from the time that he makes the wudu till he prays, if something comes out with certainty, it doesn't really matter to him because he has a condition and his salah is valid. So if a person made the time for Salatul Asr entered, if he's praying at home or he's going to the masjid, he makes wudu and then he's busy with the salah. He makes salatul, even when he goes to the masjid, he prays salatul sunnah or tahiyatul masjid, whatever, and then he prays fard. It doesn't harm him if he breaks the wudu in that case, but with the condition again that he makes wudu for every obligatory salah, and there's not, he's not doing anything after the wudu except being busy with the salah itself or going to the salah. الله أعلم. سؤال هل ممكن تبديل الجوارب والاستمرار المسح عليه, which means can we change the socks and still wipe over them. إذا بدل الجورب قبل المسح على الأول لا بأس أن يمسح على الثاني. أما إذا بدل الجورب بعد المسح عليه, يعني الممسوح خلع, ففي هذه الحالة يجب أن يتوضأ وضوءا كاملا ويغسل قدميه ولا يجزي المسح على الثاني. Which means if you wipe over the sock and then you remove it, you want to wear another one, that's not valid. You have to make full wudu first. But if you put socks on, you were in state of wudu, you put socks on and you didn't wipe over it and you didn't break your wudu and you exchange them with another socks, there's no harm. You can wipe over the second one. If a person thinks he didn't fall asleep when sitting, but someone sitting next to him says he fell asleep, as he saw loss of control of his neck for a brief period, then should he consider his wudu broke? Yes. And it really doesn't need for a person to have someone to tell him that you slept. And that's why it's once a person knows that he was out, and that's easy thing for a person to recognize, meaning that he lost it basically. He did not, he fell asleep. He would not hear anyone around him. So he does not need someone to tell him that you really you fall asleep. And one of the people of knowledge, it's mentioned in the books of fiqh, that used to take the opinion that if you're sitting, even if you slept, it doesn't break the wudu, which is not quite the correct opinion in that case if a person really fall asleep. He said till one time he was in the masjid and someone was sitting and that person passed wind. And, he heard him, he's next to him. And that person was asleep, sitting. So when that person woke up, or when he woke him up, that person argued that he was, he didn't break his wudu. and he was sitting and he didn't break the wudu. So that's something that he saw with his own eyes. So it's not about that sitting, even if a person breaks his wudu is still valid. No, if he breaks his wudu, he breaks his wudu. So, but the point here is sleep in itself breaks the wudu, or that what might happen when a person is asleep that makes it, breaks the wudu. If he falls asleep, deep sleep, that means not deep for a long period of time, that means he really slept, that by itself breaks the wudu. Allahu A'lam. If your wudu breaks if you remove the socks. According to, there's opinions in this, but according to what, what I personally follow, and again, it's easy to say according to the correct opinion. Correct opinion based on who? Who would say that this is the correct opinion? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, is that it does not break the wudu to take or to remove the socks. Why? Because there's no evidence that removing the socks breaks the wudu. Yes, if you remove the socks, you cannot wipe over them next time. Next time you make wudu, you have to wash your foot. But if you made wudu and you wiped over your socks and you took your socks off, you are in wudu. Nothing happened here to break the wudu. Now, if someone sleep in the sujood and then continue the salah, the subject of sleeping during salah, does that break the wudu? There is talk about the ulama in this, and they said if a person slept while standing, that doesn't break the wudu. A person in ruku' does not break the wudu, but if in sujood, it breaks the wudu. So if it happened that a person, really went to sleep, if it's true, and he went to sleep while making sujood, and sometimes you would see that in Taraweeh prayer, and you would see some people are in that state. It's usually not real sleep, but it's dozing or something like this. So that, inshallah ta'ala, it doesn't break the wudu. And that means he can continue with the salah. So this is, wallahu a'lam, is what is correct, inshallah ta'ala. But it's one of the subjects that has many differences of opinions. Of some of them, they said it's over 8 opinions in this subject with regards to the sleeping while in salah or not in salah. Because of the time, inshallah ta'ala, we'll stop here because of the next class. We'll continue, inshallah, next time. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.